Her. Indy, come lay down. She's like licking. Yeah, that's her collar banging on her metal dish.
On her dish. I kind of figured.
Yeah.
It's been a day.
Go lay down. Go lay down. Lay down.
Ooh. Another day, another show. Another show. Shody-o-wo. All right, so I don't even have all my stuff up tonight. Holly, what the hell is going on with me?
It's okay. You're tired.
It's been an interesting day. That damn show with Phil and Matt in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah. A weird set of fellas, them two. Those two gentlemen. All right.
You got yourself pulled together?
Yeah, I think so.
You're gonna play the intro?
I think so. I think here we go. Here we go.
All right.
Welcome, everybody, to Slip Into the Night, episode 9? I think it's 9. I don't know. Gobekli Tepe. Yes. Large phallic rocks sticking out of the ground in circles.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, Richard. I am never together. Fucking damn right I'm never together. Gobekli Tepe, which is probably... No, it is. It's my... something will come along eventually and knock it down, but it is my favorite megalithic structure to date. I'm going to try to, from memory, pull this shit out of my ass because I love this fucking thing. And you did a little bit of research, so if you've got this stuff, you can correct me.
Oh, right.
So, Gobekli Tepe was found in Turkey.
Correct.
By a Turkish farmer in 1994. I do believe was the year that he found it. He found something sticking out of the ground when he was out in the field, and they started digging it out, and lo and behold, there was this fucking structure, and that was taken over by a German archaeologist. I don't know his entire name. I think it's Klaus something. They're all named fucking Klaus.
Maybe they're fans of the Umbrella Academy.
That could be.
That is my favorite character there.
What came first? Klaus is the best. But
Klaus Schmidt?
Is that it? Is that who it is?
I don't know. I'm looking at an article, and it's a Schmidt.
Yeah,
Klaus Schmidt. Yes, it's his team.
I should have gone with my fucking... I should have gone with my first instinct and just friggin' ran with it. Yeah.
Shoot from the hip.
And Klaus has been meticulously for years now, and they barely unearthed, a small fraction of this thing. They're meticulously removing layers and finding these structures, and in some cases, these huge megalithic rocks have to be supported once they uncover them, because there's nothing supporting them anymore once they unbury everything. But what's interesting about Gobekli Tepe is that they built this thing several times, actually.
Well, and at a time when current history says that they were only hunter-gatherers.
Right. And
because they're dating it to about 8200 to 9600 BCE before the Common Era.
Yeah.
So it's like 10,000 years old. And it's older than the pyramids.
And then
as we currently date them.
Right. And after they built them, they purposefully, intentionally buried them.
Yes.
And they did this. There's more than one. What most people don't understand about Gobekli Tepe is there's more than one structure. underneath the other structures. It's
It's
weird.
layered like an onion.
Yeah, and so there's structures underneath the structures. They kept burying it, and it gets really weird. Like, why did they do it? What were they doing? There's all these carvings of animals that don't exist in the areas where Gobekli Tepe is geographically, but yet they have depictions of animals from other parts of the world on these stones. It is mind-boggling. Gobekli Tepe just says, "Here I am." Ha! Figure it out, motherfucker. Because why? What purpose did it serve? What is it? The only thing they can think of is that it was some type of a place where they gathered for religious ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Why did they need to build this thing, and why did they bury it? Why did they think they needed to bury it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I see things like this, my questions go to: is it much older than what we think? And is civilization much older than what we think? Which is, I definitely think that. I don't even think I need to ask the question for myself anymore. I just know that it is. Like, civilization is far older than we want to ever give it credit for. And the problem with civilization is that I think so much was lost that it rose to a point, and then we fell, and then we went back in technology, and we lost everything, and things get lost in translation over time, and here we are. Rising again, so to speak. But I think at some point in time, civilization was at a pinnacle, a peak, so to speak, and that it fell. And here, and then we had to claw back up out of the ashes of a, medieval primordial fucking soup again, so to speak. That whole idea of, we don't have any technology. We're all just fucking, grimy pieces of shit.
Right. Well, I mean, mythology certainly kind of suggests that maybe we did have higher technology in the past with legends like Atlantis and Lemuria, which would have all been around or prior to kind of the Great Flood threshold, which is also mythological, but there's evidence of catastrophic melting with the end of the last ice age, what they call the Younger Dryas period, which seems to correspond with some kind of global cataclysm where the North American ice cap starts to melt, and different scientists have kind of did it at different ways. Was it a comet? Was it a big meteor? Was it plasma being discharged off the sun in a solar discharge event and hitting the Earth and causing a rapid?
Well, the Earth has definitely been hit by meteors or an asteroid, comet fragment, or I mean, there have been some big objects that have hit the Earth. The Yucatan Peninsula is nothing more than a humongous crater. It just happens to be underwater. And there are many others around the globe. So we have been hit by, but whether or not those were the events that caused this shift. But you mentioned the plasma discharge from the sun, the coronal mass ejections or whatever, and the man who's a big proponent of that is Robert Schoch, and I respect that man's opinion insanely.
Yes.
Listening to him, he's not an idiot. If he gets put into a lot of TV shows, and then his information kind of gets, it isn't that they twist what he says, they just kind of put him in with little sound bites, so it makes it sound like he's promoting an ancient alien theory, and he's not. If you listen to anything that Robert Schoch says, he's not. He is a proponent that civilization at one time was at a much higher technological point than what we believe currently.
Yes.
And he is a huge proponent of the idea of a coronal mass ejection from the sun that wiped out the technology or wiped out the height of civilization.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And there's so much of this stuff that like the history of the world that's gone. Like when they fucking burned the Library of Alexandria, so
Mm-hmm.
much of that history is just vanished.
Well, and it's some of it is still being destroyed with in the Middle East. There is a lot of active destruction of really old prehistoric sites that kind of contradict the beginning of the world being 6,000 years ago, based
Right.
on certain religious preferences or belief systems. So, especially in like Iraq and Turkey, that some of those sites are in jeopardy to be destroyed.
Yeah, and the people that are in charge over there don't give a shit either. About that. That's a very secular culture. The religion is a huge part of their way of life, and they're just, if it contradicts their faith, they're going to get rid of it. And it's sad because there's so much history that we've lost in the Middle East, especially Iraq, Iran.
Yeah, not so
that,
much
that area.
Turkey.
Yeah.
They have made Gobekli Tepe a World Heritage Site, so it is protected. And the other, and it's not the only site that appears to be of this time frame. That there are other, like Haran Tepe and or something like that, and that they have not even started to excavate yet.
Right.
That may illuminate more of this, whatever culture this is, that's supposedly hunter-gatherer, that is then moving 30-ton T-shaped pillars into circles and carving them. And where, if they were hunter-gatherers, where were they getting the manpower resources to create this site?
Right.
At a time when they weren't really, are just starting to develop agriculture, domesticate animals. I mean, this is the area at the top of what they call the Fertile Crescent, between the Tigris and the Euphrates River, which from biblical history, it is in somewhat in that area where Adam and Eve allegedly had the Garden of Eden. So there's that idea that this is where man as we know it developed, where domesticated animals came from. But how do they go from hunter-gatherers to making these big megalithic structures is still a big unknown.
Right. And one of the things that they try to put forth as a theory is that, well, maybe the hunter-gatherers weren't as uncivilized or unadvanced as we thought. There's that theory that gets tossed around. And that, well, even though they were hunter-gatherers, they could still, they could still gather and be able to do all this bullshit. And I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't understand it. It makes no sense. Take away the fact that how old it is, how big the structures are, like whether or not, why did they fucking build it and then bury it and then build on top of it and then bury it again? Why would you build these big, huge things and then bury them?
Yeah.
And we know that it's there because we can do ground penetrating radar and we can see that it's there. These layers, one underneath the other. Why? What the fuck were they doing? And it makes no sense. Like, if they were just hunter gatherers, why? Why would what? To me, it seems like it's a higher purpose thing. There was something going on. I'm sure it had something to do with the heavens or religion or celestial bodies moving in the sky or some shit like that. They all do. All of these old megalithic structures have some orientation to the constellations or the star formations in the sky. It is almost bar none across the board. Happens everywhere. But why? That's my question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a fuck how they did it. Don't fucking care anymore. I don't care how many slaves it took to fucking erect that goddamn stone. I don't care if they did it with other technology. I just want to know why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't give a shit. Why?
Right. Right. And so really though, it's going to take some investigation and for the sites to be fully uncovered and documented to really understand, kind of get a sense of maybe why they did that, and what was motivating them to make these big temples. Certainly in the area that that Gobekli Tepe was erected, that there were other later centers called like Urdu, they call the Chaldean, in the Sabian civilizations, which were very focused on astrological and astronomical observations. And so it's possible that it could have reached even further back in time to the Gobekli Tepe civilization, where they had this interest in the sky. But why? That seems to be lost, other than the fact that maybe they were looking for omens, which is what some of the later Chaldean and Babylonian civilizations were looking for. They were watching the skies for omens of different things to happen, sort of fortune telling type of things. It's the basis of modern day astrology, but also learning, on direct observation. So it's also the basis of the very foundations of astronomy as well as astrology. They were just applying astrological meaning to the observations of the sky.
Right. Yeah, and the sky ruled their lives. I mean, everything. It's what they had. They didn't have TV. When it got dark, they saw the stars. But I think that's something, and I find myself now with technology and everything, we're so disconnected from everything. And it's to get recently started like trying to get myself out, so I'm not like just so wrapped up in just the technology and screens and shit. Like I'm actually going out and seeing, the world as it is. But people in that time, that's what all they had. The way that the stars moved in the sky, or the positions of the stars in the sky, that's their life. And whenever I watch some of these shows, like the Ancient Aliens shows, and they're like, well, they had such a deeper understanding of the heavens than we did. Well, fucking duh. They looked at it way more than we did. Or do. Like there's way too much light pollution for your normal average human being to be able to look up at the sky and enjoy it. You just can't. And the people that do are the scientists, or the people that are doing it for a living. They're looking through telescopes and they're doing like the research. But I can remember being a young kid. I was probably like maybe 5, 6 years old, if that. And, standing out at the end of my driveway, we lived on a dirt road in Buxton. And my father taking me out there at night and just looking up at the sky and showing me, the outer arms of the Milky Way galaxy, and the constellation, the Big Dipper and Orion, all this, just, and being able to see it so clearly, because at that point, like where I lived in Buxton, there wasn't any light pollution. Like you didn't even have a lot of people with these huge like outdoor lights like you do now.
Yeah.
And you could really see.
Yes.
And these people, these ancient peoples, that was their life. You know, when the sun went down, they didn't have fucking street lights. You know, they had the sky. You know, I'm sure they had like ways to see, you know, light, you know, whatever the case may be, torches, candles, whatever, I don't know what the fuck they had. But they paid far more attention to that than we do. And to say, you know, I think personally, I'll give it to you in just a second. But to say, you know, that, oh, well, they had to have been given some knowledge by somebody else to have such understanding of the movement of the. No, somebody just fucking sat there and went, hey, this shit's happening over and over and over and over again.
Right. Well, so I think when you're developing agriculture and you're going from a hunter-gatherer, and even as hunter-gatherers, they were in a temperate climate, very dependent on the changes of the seasons and understanding when summer is going to change into fall, when's fall going to change into winter, when can we expect a big snowfall. And some of the markers for that are astronomical. You have certain constellations, and the constellations as we know them go back to Babylonian times. So just watching, you know, when is, you know, the constellations coming through, when certain stars are rising, was a way of tracking the seasons for the early peoples. And even in more tropical climates, in ancient Egypt, they knew that the summer rains would come in June with the rising of the star Sirius. And that was celebrated by the Feast of Isis, which was one of their goddesses. And so they knew when the star Sirius starts rising, that this is the start of their rainy season and the great flooding, and when the Nile River would flood and bring a big, you know, large amounts of like more fertile like sediment from the upper parts of the river into the flood fields, and they would plan for that. They knew that that was coming. You know, in more temperate climates, you know, you were looking for that shortest day of the year because you knew after that the light was growing, and within a few weeks spring and summer would be here. And then you're looking for that height of summer because you knew from that midsummer point you needed to start harvesting anything because the winter park comes in. And different cultures celebrate this differently. There's a, you know, a lot of the shamanic indigenous spirituality has what they call the medicine wheel, which is based on the four directions, which is based on the seasons.
Yep.
And also does have symbolism that links up with what's going on with the sky, the length of daylight. You know, winter is the dark time in the northern hemisphere. It's cold, and the symbolism of the four directions is that is a cold, silent time, a time of kind of gathering your strength to burst forth in the springtime.
And it's quite obvious that that sites like Gobekli Tepe are organized and designed around these ideas, that, like what you're talking about, like that. Okay, this is the time of year. This is, you know, and by and large, all of these sites, they're all oriented this in these same types of patterns. They're not the same.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go so far as to say that. You know, none of it is exactly the same. But you find these similar patterns. They follow the orientation of the stars, or they follow the orientation of this set of stars, or they're oriented to this star. You know what I mean? All of this stuff is very much ingrained in it.
And we still loosely follow that pattern today. We just changed the names of the holidays.
Oh yeah.
And we've changed the names of the stories around the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
With the holidays that fall in the, you know, around December 25th, which matches up with Roman Saturnalia and Christmas and Festival of Lights in some other cultures, and winter solstice. That's different names with slightly different stories and mythologies and spirituality around it, but kind of all celebrating the same thing. You see around in the springtime things like Easter, festival. There are Beltane, things like that, celebrating springtime.
Mm-hmm.
Of rising forth from the dead, which there is a lot of death symbolism around the winter solstice, where the stories of, I think, kind of like Celtic paganism or Celtic spirituality of the Oak King and the Holly King and stuff like that, with one
Oh
of
yeah.
them
Well,
dying and rising forth and that kind
right.
of
Well,
thing.
and in a lot of your pagan traditions, like the male symbolic figure of God dies in the winter, but yet he's planted his seed within the mother, who then gives birth to him once again in the spring. There's just like this. There's this very cyclical nature to things,
Yes.
which is presented throughout history. And I mean, and nature is cyclical. It just is. Everything's cyclical. Everything runs in a friggin' elliptical loop around the sun. Everything's in a pattern that happens so many years. It's all this cyclical thing. And they were huge on, you need to understand this cyclical nature of the universe, of the world, of whatever. And I think we still to this day could benefit from understanding and paying attention to that cyclical nature of the universe. And I don't think we even begin to understand it at all, to any great degree. We're just beginning to scratch the surface of how things really work. Excuse me. But when I look at these, like I said, and how I love these old sites, the Gobekli Tepe and Machu Picchu and I'm trying to think of the other one, Pumapunku.
Yeah.
There's so many of these places that just, when you look at them and you look at what was built there and what was made there or even manufactured there, for fuck's sake, you look at I look at Pumapunku and I'm like, where's the machines that made this shit? Like, that pumped this shit out?
Yeah.
Because everything is so the same, and so precise. It's fucking incredible.
Right. Well, the H-shaped blocks of Pumapunku are really always astound me with the amount of precision. You see Gobekli Tepe, and it does look more hand hewn. It is not as
Gobekli Tepe
precise.
is not precise. It is it looks like it was made by people early on, but in what way, I don't quite understand. When I look at Pumapunku, I'm like, where's the thing that stamped these fucking rocks out?
Right, because they are so precise and so geometric.
Yeah.
What they call the H blocks. They, in some places they have what looks like very precise drill marks in them. They are really amazing, and even with Machu Picchu and some of the really old stone walls in Peru with they call them the big polygonal blocks, which are these huge ginormous, that's not really a word, but giant boulders that are.
We'll give it to you, Holly.
You'll give it to me. Oh, thank you. Multi-sided, and they're fit together like puzzle pieces, and you can't even really put a piece of paper between them. They're so big, and why would you make a wall out of all these blocks and fit it so perfectly? And if you could do that, why wouldn't you just make them even regular normal blocks? But they didn't. They used blocks of different shapes and just fit them together. They almost look like they've been poured into place.
Yeah. That's and the thing is with the South American cultures, they claim that whoever built those were able to liquefy stone.
Yeah.
And like if you pay attention to their history, like their oral history, what they're telling people, it isn't that it makes sense, but it's like, what's going on here? It just begs questions. Like, is there is there technology here that we didn't know about? What's the deal? Katie says ginormous is totally a word in her book.
Oh,
So
thanks, Katie.
you get props for ginormous.
But what you do in Peru, you see what in some ways is more technologically sophisticated work at the foundation of these very old ruins, and it becomes less sophisticated as you go up, which is not really what you would expect if civilization is getting progressively more advanced. You would expect that the upper layers, the more recent layers, would be more technologically advanced. That's not what you see. Especially in places like Sacsayhuaman, Machu Picchu, Ollantaytambo, you know, these kind of ruins up in the High Inca, and that kind of modern civilization has attributed to the Inca, but the people there themselves say, no, that's not our stuff.
Yeah, they say it was built by somebody else.
Yeah, they say it was built by someone else.
But I'm sure with the amount of cocaine that they chew, they probably did a lot. Gives them plenty of energy to walk up them fucking mountains. I was just listening to a thing with Mike Rowe, and he was talking about how he went up, up into the mountains in Peru, and that he did do the whole thing where you chew on the cocoa leaves, and
yeah,
and and he was talking about these guys that live up there in these they've never been below, like 7,000 feet, or whatever the hell the insane
right.
altitude is that they've never been down below. And he was saying how he left them his Walkman, because he was like, yeah, here, have this. And he just, like, after he left, he thought about how, like, these people, like, because there's nothing up there, like they don't have there's no technology, there's no he's like, and then I thought, like, what happened when the batteries ran out?
Yeah.
But but these people that, like, you get these people, these Sherpas, they live at such high altitudes that their bodies are just totally, they're different. They're able to withstand much more. They can deal with the lack of oxygen. They're accustomed to it. And you look at these places, like Machu Picchu is the one that's built, like, insanely high, right? It's
I
like
think
way
10,000
up.
feet.
Yeah,
But it's interesting because if you go to Peru to go see Machu Picchu, you have to, like, fly into Lima, and you're actually at a higher elevation, and you go to Cusco, which is still quite high up in the Andes, and you actually have to descend down to, like, maybe 10 or 16,000 feet or something like that to go to Machu Picchu, because it's at a lower elevation and it's more in the jungle area of Peru than, like, the rest of what they call the Sacred Valley.
Yeah. But you look at these places and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, Machu Picchu is beautiful. You look at that and it's just like, what? This is fucking amazing.
Yes, like on my top, like, 5 places to visit.
Oh yeah, mine too. It's just beautiful. It's gorgeous. Gobekli Tepe is not a beautiful place.
Yeah.
When I look at Gobekli Tepe, I go, huh? What the fuck?
Yeah.
I don't go, that's fucking, God, that looks fucking cool. I mean, I think it looks cool, but it doesn't go, oh wow. When I look at Machu Picchu or I look at Puma Punku, I go, oh fucking wow. Well, Puma Punku is a little hard because you can't see what it what it was supposed to be. It's just it looks like fucking a giant came through with a fucking club and just destroyed everything.
Yeah. It's a field of rocks, but then when you look at the rocks, you realize how, like,
it looks like a big field of Legos.
it does. Yeah.
I mean, really, it looks like a big fucking field of Legos.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at those structures, I am in awe. I'm in awe
Mm-hmm.
of the beauty of it. You know, when I look at
Mm-hmm.
the pyramids of the Maya, you know, in Central America, Mexico,
Yeah, like
they're
Tikal in Guatemala and
beautiful.
Teotihuacan in
Yeah,
Mexico, and
just
they're
absolutely
beautiful.
beautiful architecture. The shit they did, like the stuff they did with the steps of the pyramid, where a certain time of the year, the way the light hits it, it does, freaky shit and strange shit.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just
It's
totally beautiful.
sophisticated.
Yeah, very beautiful architecture. In India, you have the same type of shit. And it's just crazy. But when I look at Gobekli Tepe, that one makes me scratch my fucking head, because for so long you have people saying, this is the beginning of human civilization, human history. This is where we're at. This is the number. And then Gobekli Tepe happens. And the
Oh,
number
absolutely.
and the
Yeah.
fucking number gets fucking shot, like fucking out into fucking it. And now,
Yes.
to me, Gobekli Tepe just goes, we don't fucking know. Not only don't we not know, but we shouldn't even be fucking making any guesses at this point. Like, we should just be trying to figure out what the fuck, because human civilization is much older, much more advanced than what we think. I stand by that. I don't think I'm wrong.
Well, I think it calls into consideration on the stories that we've been told of our history, of our far history, and is it really based by factual data? And I think that's going back to Robert Schoch. That's one of the things that he does with the Sphinx analysis, because he says that the erosion patterning around the enclosure of the Sphinx is clearly older based on what we know of weather history and climate history, because that would have taken a lot of rain
And
to
there was no
do
rain in that area for, I mean,
like 10,000 years.
yeah, the last time it rained in that area in Egypt, it, for that amount, for the amount that it would have taken to erode the rock of the Sphinx. And not to mention the fact that they're pretty sure now that the head on the Sphinx was not originally a man. They think it was a dog.
Well, right, and you would think that would, if it was all created at one time, that it would be evenly eroded, and it's not. And you would think that the parts that protruded and that are out into the elements, that face would be much more eroded, and it's not. It's a lot more crisply detailed than the rest of the body, which they've done extensive, like, what's the word? Not renovation, but restoration to.
Yep.
It's it makes you really scratch your head. And then there's other weird things in the area around, going back to Gobekli Tepe, the caves of Derinkuyu, and those are not really. They think they know, but they're very, very difficult to date. It's hard.
You can't date rock.
I mean, rock is just old.
Yeah, you cannot. They can't carbon date rock. They can't. There's no way for them to accurately date like Derinkuyu. And Derinkuyu's fucking weird.
It's really strange.
I mean,
it's extremely sophisticated tunnels that go for miles into the earth.
Yeah, underground.
And they support a city's worth of people.
And they know that they had livestock down there. They had animals. They had they were gardening down there.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were doing everything down there, and there were people living under there for years. The door to Derinkuyu, you can't open it from the outside.
Yeah, it's almost like a thing out of science fiction, but it's a real place, and it's like
Yeah.
it's really interesting and really strange.
And
Like,
this
what
and
were they doing down there?
right, what why?
And why?
This goes back to my whole question about Gobekli Tepe. I don't give a fuck how they did it. I don't care how many fucking slaves, how many people, whether it was ancient alien technology, people from the future. I don't fucking care. Why? That's what I care about. Why did they dig out a city underground for miles? Well, not miles, a couple miles maybe, but it's a huge fucking complex. Why did they do this?
Well, and they had the foresight to make pretty sophisticated ventilation shafts
Mm-hmm.
and to plan things like trash disposal and like waste disposal and storehouses. Like someone planned to make this underground stone city. Why?
Yeah.
Why were they
Why?
moving into the why were they moving underground?
What did
And
they
and
do it
why
for?
and why put all that energy in that when at a time they were supposed to be going from hunter gatherers to basically living in huts and having like wheat fields and oxen and you know.
Well, and some people think it's because of it was because of the ice age, but how'd they know? How'd they know it was coming?
Mhm.
Was fucking Ned Stark out there going, "Winter is coming"? I don't fucking know. That's what I want to know. What
Mhm.
the fuck was going on? Did they have an understanding of how ice ages worked? And if so, how?
Right.
Because according to our archaeologists, our people in the know, these people shouldn't have known shit. They
Mhm.
should have they should hunter gatherers. That's it.
Mhm. Yes. There are legends from like the Hopi that say that the human civilization's been destroyed 4 times, and we're like on the fourth go around here. And in those legends, one of the things that had happened was that people went underground to survive some kind of cataclysm. Um, and then you have other stories like the Indian Bhagavad Gita, which talks about giant cities coming and people hiding from these cities that were fighting in the air.
Oh yeah.
And it's really weird stuff. And it's like, what was it? Was that a more advanced civilization that had airborne battleships? Was that a space civilization? Is this just flights of fantasy or
Are they talking about an earlier uh
human
technological
civilization?
human technologically advanced civilization that
Mhm.
the history of it got turned into these flying cities and
Mhm.
you know the thing about the Bhagavad Gita and the those texts, the Mahabharata and all that bullshit,
Mhm.
is that there's like highly technically advanced drawings of the machines in those books,
Mhm.
which is very strange.
Mhm.
And if I remember correctly, there was an aviation expert at one time who, they had asked him something like, "What about where we should be looking for, um, the next technological advancements in flight?" And he said to look back into these texts. Um, and who knows? That's the thing. Who knows? I
Mhm.
I don't I don't know what these people knew
Mhm.
or didn't know. And I think we're probably never going to have a full understanding of history, which is too bad. It's sad, really. Because I think if we had a complete understanding of our history, having that full picture,
Mhm.
I think it would be so much things would be so much clearer for us as a race, on this planet as a people.
Right, but there does seem to be at least some measure of hiding some information, or like we talked about the destroying of monuments in Iraq and Iran, and wiping them out. It is known that the Vatican holds some really old texts and they don't let them out. And, the Library of Alexandria was
burned.
And, how much of that is really malicious to potentially hide a former civilization from our generation?
Well, I mean, to me, any
and I don't know the answer to that, and it's just
I look at it
on what's going on.
If they're hiding anything about prehistory or history, whatever the case may be, it's wrong, and it is malicious. Does it harm us? I think it harms people in the sense that a lot of this stuff goes to promote ideals for religious structures. And I think that having a healthy understanding of reality. Listen, I'm a very spiritual and I wouldn't say religious person. I'm a very spiritual person. I don't practice my faith like I used to. But I'm very, I'm very cool with anybody having their own beliefs. But a lot of this stuff is just so ingrained, and a lot of things have happened because of these belief systems that haven't necessarily been good. To quell information about prehistory or early history, and it's just, to me, it's something that we should try to, as a people, not have this happen ever again. Like, we should try to make sure that our history isn't lost because some fucking idiots think, oh no, this somehow in some way takes away from my, my belief in my God. That needs to go away. Like, we need to save our history so we can know where we came from. I think that's super important.
Yes, but it's not always happened, because what has happened in the past is that whoever is the civilization in charge writes the stories, and
right.
They write over the other party's perspective.
Right, and that's what I think we should strive to have never happen again. I think it should never. We should strive to have it so that does not happen, so that we know where we came from, because ultimately we are a people with an identity crisis, because we don't know our history. We don't know where we came from. You have all these people going, it's ancient fucking aliens, or it's fucking this, or it's that, or God did it, or or we came out of the fucking ocean, or we were seeded. There's so many different options that people on this planet have an identity crisis. And I think if we understood our history, that wouldn't be as much the case. We could go, oh, this is where we come from.
Right, and it's certainly some of the stories now tend to separate when we're really all one people.
Yeah.
And we get caught up in the kind of the interim stories and factions and stuff.
That we're separate.
That we're separate, but we're really just one species on a great big marble in the sky.
Yeah.
Trying to survive, and
Yeah, and that is exactly what we are. We are just one species on a fucking blue marble spinning through the fucking cosmos. But we separate ourselves. And we're good at that. We're good at separating, and I'm over here, you're over there, you stay over there. I'm gonna stay over here.
You want me to stay over here?
Well, no, whoever, not you. People in general, If you stay over there, I'll stay over here.
Mhm.
If you come over here, maybe you have to take your clothes off. But maybe you should stay over there. But these are the things, though, Holly. Like, that's what we do. We separate. We draw lines.
And
We draw
categorize.
we draw fake lines on the ground that don't exist.
Yeah.
And that make it so this is my property line.
Yes.
In a
Well,
lot of
for one,
ways, I get it. Like, hey, this is my space. Come on, this is mine. Like, allow me to have this. But we do it, and we fight over this shit. And I just think a healthy amount of understanding, like you were saying, we're one people. Like, a healthy amount of understanding of that could go a long way for the future of humanity.
well, right, and I mean, there's also, people imagine how we would interact if some space civilization comes here.
Yeah.
Another species. But we already on a planet with hundreds, if not thousands, of species. How well do we interact with the other species on our planet? And we seem to tend to want to dominate them. And, we're not necessarily good neighbors. I guess we are.
Fuck, look at what we do. Look at what we do to dolphins and killer whales.
Which are
These
incredibly
super intelligent creatures.
yes.
We know this, and yet we allow these corporations, and we're getting better about it. Like, there's a lot of places now that are drafting laws to eliminate this, but they take these insanely intelligent creatures, these beautifully intelligent creatures, and they lock them up in these little pens that, like, for them is horror. If they have to drug them, they have to give them all kinds of friggin' antidepressants and shit because they get all fucked up being in these confined spaces. And this is what we do to them. We control them. Here, do tricks, jump through fucking hoops. Fuck you. Let them swim in the ocean. That's one thing that I'm totally against now. I am totally against any type of a zoo. Like, we're at a point now where we have drones, we have people that go out into the field and take the amazing video of these creatures so we can look at them.
Mm-hmm.
And we can look at them in real time. Like, there are people who put out these friggin' live cams and shit. We don't need zoos anymore. We don't need them. Let these animals live in their fucking environments. We can watch them there.
Right.
We don't need to look at them through bars.
I would just qualify that as unless that species is particularly at risk and they need help propagating their numbers.
Yeah,
and in that case, I can see that.
Unless it's the panda bear. I'm sorry, folks. We can let the panda bear go. They're lazy. They don't even want to fuck. They barely want to eat. The panda bear can just fucking go. No,
you're anti-panda.
Listen. Panda bears, evolutionarily, they fuck themselves. That's the way I look at it. They don't even want to. They give birth to the fucking baby. They're like, fuck it. I'd rather eat some bamboo. Fuck you, little baby that needs my milk.
Wow.
That's the way they are, Holly. They're so lazy. They don't give a shit. And it's because of the way they're designed evolutionarily, that they have no energy. Mm-hmm. Because they're the only bear that lives entirely off plant matter.
Yeah.
And it's just
they may be dead ending themselves is I think what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Now, tigers, on the other hand, like, yeah, shit, we should be trying to save the tiger population because they kill people, and I'm all for that. I wish one would take me out today.
Oh.
Well, at least the tiger kills you quick. Bear will eat you while you're still alive. Tiger just fucking knock you right out. But no, I agree. I think that, we should be, saving these creatures. And to get back to the subject at hand, it makes me wonder, like, because Gobekli Tepe has all of the symbolism of animals.
They sure do.
And what this goes back to, what was it? People have said, that it might have been some type of an ark or a DNA or a genetic collection place. I think if you look at it structurally, architecturally, technologically, I don't think so. It doesn't scream to me, hey, this is where we kept some DNA.
Yeah, that doesn't. I would have to see a whole lot more evidence before I would really jump on that bandwagon. I do think that they were probably great observers of their environment, and like many cultures that have kind of a shamanic background, they saw attributes in the animals around them, and that may become part of their mythology and their symbology, and they depicted that. And if this is truly a place of some kind of spiritual organization, that they may be putting the animals that they saw as some kind of power animals up on
I'm not
their carvings.
I'm not a huge Ancient Aliens fan. Love the show. Not a huge like Ancient Aliens came to Earth type thing, and that's why we had the technology that we had. However, I am a we are the aliens proponent. Like I could get behind. And this is something that I could also get behind. I could get behind the idea that Noah was the dude that brought everything here. And that the flood wasn't necessarily water.
Well, it is very close to Mount Ararat, where in Turkey, where the biblical story says the ark
landed. Yeah. And like I wonder, like, because of the story and the way it is, like take two of it. And I think I think that was symbolic. The whole take two of every, I think it was just symbolism. But I could buy into that theory that Noah was the first, or Noah's family was the first. They brought everything here, seeded the planet. Now, I don't think they were the only ones, but I think that that's more of a possibility than ancient aliens came here and helped us out. I think that there's definitely something fucked up that happened, because human beings, there's this huge jump in consciousness, in brain function between us and other primates. It's a huge jump, and nobody understands how it happened. So I am totally willing to
and yet we are almost genetically identical to chimpanzees and bonobos.
Right. The stretch genetically is not that far.
No, it is not that far.
But yet there's just amazing differences from this small difference genetically. So I don't know. I don't know.
More than genetics?
Right. I don't know. I don't know what the whole thing is, but I'm beginning to like I said, I totally, for a long time now, I've been a proponent of the fact that the Graham Hancock theory of humans are a species with amnesia.
Yes.
And we have forgotten our past. We have no way to recover it at this point. It's possible we could find something somewhere that could answer the questions, but I doubt it at this point. But I think places like Gobekli Tepe, they have to make us go. They have to make people stop and say, we're wrong. And we need to look at things differently. And that's the thing that Gobekli Tepe screams at me, is they're wrong. They're not just like, a little bit wrong. They're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that, and if anybody wants to look at it, listen to people like Robert Schock. I think Graham Hancock, and there's another guy. He does some stuff with. He's been on the Joe Rogan show a couple of times with Graham Hancock. He's another geologist guy. He studies the early history of the United States, especially, and just I people should really look into it. Have an open mind, take a look at this stuff, and be willing to accept new theories. This stuff, to me, it makes way more sense than what we've been told. Way more sense.
And I think Robert Schock and Graham Hancock would really support looking at the evidence and just interpreting exactly what you see. And I think that is kind of like their bottom line is the data that we know doesn't support the conclusions we've been told for as long as, however, that this is how civilization arose.
Right.
And we certainly have even sites in the United States that are, make you scratch your head that appear to be megalithic, which do not, the story is that there were hunter-gatherers that crossed the Bering Strait from Siberia into Alaska and then down through the North American continent. That's the native indigenous peoples here. And yet, especially in New England, you have lots and lots of stone walls and some buildings that look like stone huts and some things that look like stone circles and that look like
and like
these monoliths.
I had just gone down to the Serpent Mound, just this past summer, and I'll tell you the thing that I noticed about that, how still crisp and defined that is. Like it has not lost any of it. The defining lines as a, and this is stuff that was made forever ago. We can't make shit that lasts like that now.
Right.
For fuck's sake. So,
there's certainly interesting things in New England, like the Woodstock up in Vermont.
Yeah.
Stone circles up there. In New Hampshire, there is what they call America's Stonehenge or Mystery Hill, which it's a site of, that's a little bit controversial. They don't know how much of it is really legit or not, but it certainly is asking a question of, is there monolithic structures in New England that have been somewhat covered up to support a different story?
There definitely are out in the Midwest. There's, and in the deserts and canyons and shit out there. Was it the Anasazi?
Yes.
Those peoples out there, they built some pretty crazy shit. And just look into it, people. Don't take my fucking word for it. Don't take Ancient Aliens' word for it. That fucking show. Go out and take a look at this stuff. Do a little bit of research, do a little bit of reading, take a look at pictures of these structures, or videos of these structures of what these things are, and check them out. And Gobekli Tepe, and Holly was concerned that I've talked about it too much. It's my favorite. I love Gobekli Tepe. So she was afraid like this would be too much to go into this one first, but no. I love Gobekli Tepe. And I think it's a great jumping off point for us to start talking about megalithic structures too.
Yeah, they're from the Stonehenge in the UK to the Karnak stones in France. There are a lot of sites that we can periodically just kind of do a deep dive, like we.
Yeah, and it allows to talk about some of the other ones as well when you do. And like I said, Gobekli Tepe is just one of those structures where when they found it, it just totally it took everything for a left turn that no one expected.
But there are Egyptian archaeologists and Egyptologists that just don't even want to really talk about it because it's
no, because it ruins everything.
It
ruins everything they've ever said.
It
and
really upsets their timelines,
and they're so afraid of just fucking changing. And those people especially piss me off the most. The Egyptologists, fuck you all. Any of you who can't just fucking man up and revise the history because it's different. Sorry. Hate to fucking break it to you. You're being a jackass. Period. You know? That would be like me like going through my fucking show the other night, all the bullshit that I said, and then standing by it. Yeah, no, yeah. No, because I fucking said a bunch of stupid shit the other night that I shouldn't have said. You know, just fucking have some humility. People fuck up. You know, you had your theory. Part of it's still correct, you know, but some of it isn't. Own it. Change it. You know, that's the part that sickens me. These people that just want to hold on to stuff that is so obviously wrong. That irritates me. Let it go. Gobekli Tepe exists. Eat your shit sandwich and just move on. But I love talking about these. So don't ever think like if you ever want to talk about megalithic structures, Holly, that I'm going to be like, oh no, we can't do that. We can't deviate off of the other stuff that we talk about to ever talk about anything else.
Oh.
No, I absolutely, you know, love talking about megalithic structures, the pyramids, is it Machu Picchu, Pumapunku, Teotihuacan, there's so many different places we could talk about, and there's so many different things once you're talking about the you know the beliefs around different, like with Gobekli Tepe, we really don't know.
Yeah, there's not really
any history of the peoples, so we can't. There's nothing you can really talk about. With some of the other ones, you can at least talk about the history that we know of the peoples that were there.
Yeah.
So there's a little more we can delve into, but on that note, Holly, I've got to go try to buy some clearance shit.
Alrighty.
Maybe some Lego Star Wars Christmas.
Ooh.
Well, I want to make some money. And, my co-host on the 40th so to go somewhere to look for some stuff. Maybe make some money. But this has been Slip Into the Night. Is episode 9? I don't want to say it's episode 9. I always lose track. Gobekli Tepe. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back next week with another wonderful episode to tantalize your spiritual mind. That was me going into my musical star streams. And we will tantalize and stimulate you with vibratory frequencies. Now we'll be back next week with another topic for you guys. I don't know what we'll be talking about, but I can assure you it will not be as exciting as my show on Sunday night.
Oh, I don't know. That might be a challenge.
Yeah, it could